All right, welcome back from the break. Welcome back, everyone. We have rearranged the order to fit a travel schedule of a very important a guest. Stacy, what is this, your 1,1233rd roadshow?
Yes.
Yes. So we are very, very honored and pleased to have live Stacy Bostjanek. She should need no introduction, but she is the DoD CIO's point person for CMMC. She's responsible for CMMC. She's here to give a short presentation and to answer your questions until 10 of 12. So without any further ado, Miss
All right.
Stacy Bostjanek.
Thank you.
Would you like the mic or would you like the
He
podium?
gave me a lapel
wonderful.
pin, so if I get too close to you, we'll probably squeak, won't we? Well, good morning,
I'll
everybody.
stay far away.
How is everybody today? All right. Welcome to the world, right? All right, so we're going to talk about CMMC today, an exciting topic I'm sure you all are interested in. How many of you are aware why we started CMMC and where it started? None? I love this group over here. You're well informed. Okay, so what happened, right, was we started the 252-204-7012. How about that for Contract Geek Talk? Does everybody know what clause that is? Oh, yeah. Yep. And what it means? Okay, so what happened was we put that clause in place. We fought for 5 years with industry to get the right requirements in the NIST 800-171 and make that a requirement in contracts. And what were contractors supposed to do? If you handled controlled unclassified information, you were supposed to comply with the requirements in NIST 800-171. So 2017, it became a requirement in your contracts as of 31 December, and everybody was supposed to be doing it. 2018, the DoDIG and the Navy Cyber Readiness Review took a little look. They said, no, they're not. Half of them don't even understand what they're complying with. They're just checking the box. So I think it was Secretary Shanahan at the time says, hey, we got to get a handle on this. We got to figure out whether or not companies that are handling our controlled unclassified information are complying with what we're requiring them to do when they handle controlled unclassified information. So at that point, the DIBCAC, the DCMA, Defense Industrial Base, I forget what CAC stands for, but there are assessors. And so they've gone out and they've started doing DoD methodology assessments, DoD high, basic, and medium assessments with companies. And what we quickly realized was they didn't have the resources or the bandwidth to handle all of the assessments that need to be done. So we started CMMC. January of 2020, we had CMMC 1.0 that rolled out, and everybody got to look at the model and understand what the model was about, and we ensued in rulemaking for the 48 CFR rulemaking to put a clause in the DFAR that would make CMMC a requirement as an interim rule starting November 30th of 2020. And then we had an election, right? Okay, do we have the slides? Can we put those up? All right, so we had an election. The new administration came in. They said, hey, we want to take a strategic pause and make sure that we're doing the right thing and CMMC is doing what we want it to do. Well, as I told you, we had gone into an interim rule already, and we'd gone in the public comment section. So during that rule, there are 3 parts to the interim rule that CMMC was included with, right? The 7019, which says you guys all have to go in and register in SPURS now and do your self-assessment, right? And the 7020 that says when the DIBCAC comes a calling, you're going to let them in, right? And then there was 7021 that was CMMC. We got 850 comments, and the rulemaking czar said that's a lot. And out of the 850, 750 were regarding CMMC. So what did we do? Go ahead to the next slide. Oh, do I need to be pushing something? There it is, the high maintenance woman. I told you. All right, got to have the clicker. Now, which button is the clicker? Just the advance?
That's it.
All right. So we got to tell you that everything we're doing is pre-decisional because we're going into rulemaking, right? So all bets are off. Anything can change. Well, I pushed the click.
You may have to
And then I turned it off. Oh my God. Wait,
Get there.
ha, there you go. Okay, so, I know, really. When we decided to take that strategic pause and look at CMMC, we put together a tiger team that reviewed the program and said, hey, if you make these tweaks, it's going to be better. So out of the tiger team, we established an executive steering group. The executive steering group met seemed like forever. We met weekly for several months to come to the resolution that you're going to see on these slides today. So what did we do? We streamlined the model. It used to be 5 levels, now it's 3, okay? Level 1 is going to be the 15 requirements in 52204-21 of the FAR. Those are going to be self-assessments. Level 2 is going to be broken back to just the 800-171 that's included in the NIST. That was what you were supposed to be doing all along with 7012, correct? Okay. And then level 3 is going to be what is now, that just was released recently, the 172. We are currently working through which of the requirements out of 172 we're going to implore for CMMC. Now, we are also working with a group of DIB SCC partners to help us make sure that what we choose for 172 is the juice is worth the squeeze. We're not killing any companies. We have small business representatives on that council. We have the primes, and we've been working with them and meeting with them to make sure that what we put in 172 isn't going to kill us. Okay? All right, so I think I've covered everything. Oh, I got to point it. Ha! Okay, so what does that mean for your assessments? So we said level 1, you only need to do a self-assessment. It will be registered in SPURS, much like you have to do for level 2 now in the 7019 provision. And you have to have an annual affirmation from somebody in your higher up C-suite saying that, yea, verily, yes, we are still in compliance on an annual basis for the level 1. Level 2, you're going to have CUI, non-prioritized CUI, and then level 3 is going to be prioritized CUI. So there's going to be some CUI that we're going to require third-party assessments. That will be your C3 PAOs, which the backstory on that is when we were putting that thing together, the FedRAMP people said, we don't like you calling them 3 PAOs like ours. So I said, fine, we'll call them C3 PAOs. And that was just in line when JEDI came out. So the C3 PAOs are the ones that are going to be doing your third-party assessments for you. Now, for the CUI that we deem non-prioritized, there will be a potential that if you handle only non-prioritized CUI, you will be allowed to do that self-assessment with an annual affirmation. If you have a third-party assessment, you will get a certification, but we will still expect you to do that annual affirmation from somebody in your C-suite that you're still in compliance with the rules and regulations on an annual basis. Level 3, we've deemed a inherently governmental task, and our DIBCAC team is going to handle the level 3 assessments. Companies that require level 3 will have to get a level 2 third-party assessment first, and the DIBCAC will come in and do the delta above that, okay? Now, if I'm confusing you or you guys have any questions, shout them out as we go, okay?
How do you know what the difference is between the 2 level 2s?
It will be in your solicitation. The solicitation will tell you whether or not the CUI that you are going to be dealing with is going to be a prioritized or non-prioritized.
So don't you want to deal with that?
Wait, hold on. For our virtual audience, who's asking that question?
I am, Mike.
All right, sir.
All right, Mike, come on now.
I told him that this would be a bad idea. But anyway, so you need to know the difference between the 2 level 2s, but you want to get ahead of that before the actual solicitation comes out. But you
Yes.
don't know what level you're going to be in the level 2 until the solicitation comes out. So as a member of the DIB, how do I handle that?
So what we're doing shortly is we are doing a tabletop exercise to be able to map it out, to provide the proper instruction to the DIB and our program managers to make sure that we recognize which CUI is considered not as important, right, as the other. Now, undoubtedly, you guys can pretty much figure what's going to be level 3, right? The highly technical things, the cool whiz-bang stuff on the cutting edge. And then prioritized, or the certified level 2 is going to be things that are dealing with that are recognized as important. There's like, they were shooting out all the statistics the other day. So NARA has 126 categories of CUI. The Department of Defense really only cares about 99 categories of CUI, and we really only care about 4 for the level 3. Okay, so the 99 is where I got to do my tabletop exercise, right? But also in that tabletop exercise, we're going to have to deconstruct a program. Because it doesn't make sense, and I see your hand, I'll get you in a minute. It doesn't make sense for me to say, okay, you've got the really cool whiz-bang stuff, right? But you're a support contractor, subcontractor to that cool whiz-bang stuff, but you may not be providing anything that has the CUI. You may not have to touch the CUI that's at the cool, right? You may just have the mediocre CUI. So then, if you only have the mediocre CUI, then you might have to have a third-party assessment. And then if you're just dealing with the specs for a bolt, you may only have to have level 1, right?
Who makes that assessment? The prime?
The
Who
program
makes
manager-
that assessment? Is it the prime?
Yeah, thank you. The program manager is going to be the one that's going to have to deconstruct and work through the CUI as we go through the program. And that's why the tabletop that we're getting ready to do, because I recognized when we started this thing that program managers needed a desk guide to figure out, like, okay, how do I do this? Because I think the thing, since Katie Arrington and I started this thing, what we heard was nobody's marking anything CUI. I don't even know what CUI is, right? So we recognized that we had to get the program managers on top of it. So I put together a guide. Well, my guide probably needs a little bit more refinement to make sure that we've got the instructions down so they understand and we understand. So more to come on that. We are going to answer it, and you are never going to be in a position as a, what we're trying to push is RFIs will come out in front of an RFP that will say, okay, hey, we're getting ready to put this contract out, and it's going to have a CMMC requirement, and it'll be a level 1, level 2, level 3, 2 certified, self-assessment, that kind of thing. So you all know what you're going to be getting into, okay? Now, I know you had a question.
Yeah, but before we get to a question,
Oh, now come on.
is it CUI or CUI?
Well, I quite frankly had a conversation with Mr. Sherman and Ms. Fletcher the other day, and apparently CUI is a guinea pig in South America that people eat in Ecuador. So Mr. Sherman prefers we call it CUI, but I've got a bad habit of calling it CUI.
We'll call it CUI.
Yes, we don't want to be eating any guinea pigs because I don't think I could handle that.
So I guess I just want to say that when we had the DoD CIO town hall just over a month ago where he said it's too complicated to do the bifurcation, and we're
No.
going to have third-party assessments. What
Well-
you're saying now is really surprising, I think, to the community.
Well, so poor Mr. McEwen, right? So poor man, he's been thrown into CMMC, and what he said was that basically there's going to be a very small number of companies that will be able to do the self-assessment.
Yeah.
And the thing that we have to realize is that most of the companies, I think we're projecting about 80,000 companies would handle CUI out of the DIB, right? And you guys all bid on more than one contract. So it's not very likely that a company is never going to have a third-party assessment that handles CUI because you have more than one contract, right? If you had only one contract that had the non-prioritized CUI and you could just do a self-assessment, that'd be great. But if you're a sub to somebody else on a contract that has prioritized CUI, or if you are the prime, you're going to have that assessment. If you touch, or, well, not if you touch, if that CUI transits your network in any way, shape, or form, then, and it's prioritized, you're going to have a C3 PAO assessment done. So if you go back and listen to poor Mr. McKeown, because, oh my gosh, I had another meeting that day, and I couldn't be on that town hall, but my cell phone started blowing up as he was speaking, and I'm like, sir, what did you say? And he was like, I didn't say anything wrong, right? Because but everybody heard him say very few, and all of a sudden it was CUIs the self-assessments bifurcation's gone, and it's not gone, but realistically, it won't be a very large number. Okay.
Over here.
Wait, where? Oh.
So as DoD contractors, we have seats at our DoD facilities, and we do 90% of our work on DoD computers. However, some of our work transits or is stored on contractor computers as we need it. So as a contractor for your DoD, will we be required to handle that highly technical information at a level 3 if we're processing all that information on DoD computers?
So CMMC is predicated on the network where the data travels, okay? So it's all about the data. In fact, coming from acquisitions now to CIO, I'm having a retraining, right? Because he's like, you make this all about the relationships, and it's got to be about the data. So let's look at it from the data. Where did the data go? If level 3 CUI never touches your network on your contractor owned network, then you would not be required to have that network certified at the level 3 or level 2. Right? If that data doesn't touch your network, because this is all about protecting the data. And what we've found with our adversaries is they typically don't go after the prime because that's where we think they're going to go. They go to the subs, and they lay in wait, and they start scraping data and taking things, and they, put things together, and then we're in a world of hurt because they've got our information.
Okay,
Okay.
back here.
So I promise I will try
I'm
to
gonna,
move on from the prioritize, not prioritize, but just one final question on that. I apologize. So we've got things like ITAR where it's enumerated on a USML. We know why it's sensitive. Or we've got CTI with a distribution statement. There's
Yes.
a reason code in it. We know why it's sensitive. Is it likely, because most of the DIB we work with deal with ITAR and they deal with CTI, is it likely that those two CUI categories would ever be non-prioritized?
Probably not.
Okay.
I think you're pretty much going to be in a position, and so that's one of the things that we've talked about with our definition of CUI and what's prioritized and what's not prioritized is trying to tie it to those distribution statements that we heretofore have used to try to help make it reasonable and easily understandable for the program managers and the contractors to know what they have. Okay, now let's try to scoot through these real quick. All right, so I think we kind of went through that one. Yeah, come on. All right, so one of the other things when we did our relook, we said it's not reasonable for us not to allow POAMs. So we said, okay, we're going to go back and we're going to look at POAMs. So the thinking today, now, everything I'm telling you is pre-decisional. We're getting ready to go into rulemaking, right? So what I tell you today may not be what we get stuck with tomorrow based on how we go through rulemaking. But our thinking is we're going to allow POAMs. They're going to have a specific timeline of 180 days to be closed out. Now, you guys are all familiar, because I know you guys have all read it, the DoD methodology and the weighting that we've put on the standards in the 171. So you've got some standards that are rated 5, some 3, some 1, right? So all standards that are weighted 1 are POAMable. You only have one that's weighted 5, which is the FIPS encryption. You must meet 3 out of the 5 to be able to POAM the last 2, because we do recognize that the long pole in the tent is NIST approval of your FIPS encryption, okay? So that's where the POAMs are going to be. All right, I'm moving quick. We also recognized that there was going to be a need for waivers. We heard a lot of squawking from the services that said, hey, I may have a brand new innovative capability where none of the participants could possibly be ready for CMMC by the time we need to award this because it's such an emergent thing. So we want to be able to waive it. They're going to have to go to the SAE and get approval for that waiver. And the company that wins that contract is going to have to pursue and close out their CMMC certification. And we're thinking the 180-day timeline again. Okay? So it's not, and we're going to expect both the program and the contractor to have some sort of risk mitigation plan for that data while it's exposed, right? Because we don't have the CMMC requirements in place. I'm going to move fast. Okay. So what does all this mean for us? The CMMC team is in Groundhog Day because we've got to go through now the 32 CFR rulemaking activities and relook at the 48 that we did last time to update it for what's going to happen with CMMC 2.0. We estimated when we started this journey it was going to take us between 9 and 24 months. The 9 months has gone away. What I can tell you today is we hope to have everything ready to be able to submit to OMB to start the rulemaking process by July. We're hoping that we have the same, May, you don't have to count.
32 and 48 get approved at different times. So if you don't make the 32 deadline, how do you make the 48 deadline?
Well, so what we're going to do is we put the 32 in, we get it started, and then we ask for an interim, and then we follow up with a 48. And so what our hope and our prayer is that we're accepted for an interim rule, and by May of 23, we will be able to have that interim rule, and CMMC requirements will show up in contracts 60 days later. And I think, come on. All right, so this is a pictorial version of how we're looking at bifurcation. Remember, you have that annual self-assessment, and then you have to have that affirmation on all levels, right, annually. All right, now it's free for all, go.
Wait. Let's do this in an orderly way.
Very, very quick question, just to confirm. If you are subject to ITAR and EAR, or ITAR, you need to be level 3, correct?
I don't know that I would say that ITAR is going to drive level 3, but it will certainly drive level 2 certification.
So you might as well do it.
Now, I don't know that I agree with that you might as well go 3 if you can, because the jump from the NIST 800-171 to the 172 requirements, and I'm not a technical person, so what I'm told is those are fairly expensive. So I'm not quite so sure you would want to do that right away.
You know, we were urged earlier to go in and get CMMC covered certification, whatever you want to do it, now.
Well,
how is
so-
that even possible when the rulemaking has just begun?
Well-
And it's not yet been fully defined?
For the CMMC ecosystem and for our nation's protection, right? Because the main reason why we want to do this is protect the national data and your intellectual property, right? So compliance with the NIST 800-171 is the thing, you know, I laugh. Where's Lee Greenwood when I need him singing I'm Proud to Be an American, right? Because this
They
is
have that if you'd like it.
Oh, kick it up. So, you know, this is what we need to do to protect our nation, right? And we are at war. How many of you got the notification about the Shields Up concern, right? We are at war in cyberspace, and we need to be protecting ourselves each and every day. So let's talk about CMMC and early adoption. For the ecosystem, we want to go ahead and encourage companies to voluntarily get a CMMC certification. Now, with rulemaking, you're correct. My legal counsel is cringing as I speak. What our intent, so the government's intent is if you go forward today and you get a CMMC certification from a C3 PAO, that once CMMC becomes a thing, right, the interim rule goes into effect May of 23, we will recognize that certification with your annual affirmation for the next 3 years. So if you did it today, theoretically you would get a certification for 4 years, not 3. Unfortunately, legal counsel says, I cannot promise that we would be able to do that because we don't know what's going to happen through rulemaking. One of your compatriots may complain about it and we may not be allowed to do it. So we've got to think that through, but we are trying to encourage companies to move forward to go ahead and get that CMMC certification today. We have 8 C3 PAOs that are already out on the website for the CMMCAB at cmmcab.org that are certified. We need to finish a couple of requirements documents from the government side to get the LPPs and LPTs running, and we are close to that. We're working those as fast as we possibly can so we can get the ecosystem kicked into gear. One of the other things that we're working on is how many of you have already had a DIBCAC high assessment? Okay, so you and your company might be coming up on your 3-year from the DIBCAC high. So what the DIBCAC has done is they're working with us on early adoption as well. And
5 minutes.
thank you. I think my husband just told me the same thing. We're working on early adoption. What they're going to do is allow a C3 PAO to go do the assessment. The DIBCAC team will do kind of a bit of oversight. They can't be in the room with them constantly, but they're going to be there. Then they will be able to accept that assessment as a DIBCAC high assessment and move forward. This allows the DIBCAC team to get to more companies because they don't have to have a full complement of assessors as they go out and do their assessment. They can send 1 or 2 people so they can divide and conquer and meet more of the need than just what they would have with their own resources. Now, for the DIBCAC or for the CMMC level 3, in the last issue paper cycle, they were plussed up, I think 140 people. So they are going to have the bandwidth to handle those level 3 assessments when they kick in.
Could I ask the panelists for the next panel to please go get mic'd up on the right-hand side of the room, if you could go, and we'll take one more question maybe?
So this morning, we started out talking about that this cybersecurity is a journey. And the CMMC, or the 800-171, is kind of this black and white, you either are or you aren't. And having been through other audits with government organizations, they take a very black and white view. Being a part of a startup, we are developing groundbreaking technology, but we're not 100%. And it is a journey, and yet the contracting view of this is that you have to be 100% there in order to be awarded the contract. How does the DoD want to approach developing technology with startups that are very, very early and bridging the gap between 0, where the assumptions that are made in 800-171, you have the infrastructure, you've got the business processes established, and this is just a little plus up, where that business is starting from nothing and has to build all of that infrastructure and all of that business process and then do the 800-171 on top of it.
So remember we talked about waivers, right? So if you are working with one of the services and they need your capability and your technology, then they are in a position where they can waive the requirement for CMMC for you. But now, the question is, how are you protecting my data while you're getting there, right? Because that's going to be something we're going to have a risk mitigation plan to figure out how that data stays protected while we're waiting for you to meet the requirements. Now, remember, we also have POAMs, right? So you can POAM the weighted ones and the FIPS encryption. That should also help you get there. And CMMC is the crawl for the walk and the run, right? It's step one for how we need to secure our nation's data. And as we go forward, you know, we kicked it back to just the straight NIST 800-171 because we recognized that there was a lot of angst about the extra 20 requirements that we put in the maturity processes. But NIST is getting ready to update 171 because they recognize that it does need some extra stuff in it to make sure that we're protected. And of course, as we go through this, you guys all know that it's going to have to change because threats change every day. So it's not going to be a static model where NIST 800-171 is going to be it, and that's all it ever is going to be. And the hope and the prayer is that you, as DIB partners and companies who are concerned about your own data, become, what's the word I want? Where you anticipate what's going to happen and make those changes to protect yourself. Where we hopefully one day don't ever have to have a standard that has to be met because you guys are already beating us to the punch, right? And we're also looking at cybersecurity as a service. That's one of the things that we're exploring that will also be very helpful. Okay.
All right, we want to thank Stacy for coming
Thank
up
you, guys.
from DC. She's on a tight schedule. Appreciate it very much.